Welcome back to the channel, fellow cultivators. Far from the shattered mountain god temple where fate quietly changed course, dark clouds are now gathering over Blusher Prefecture. The false mountain god has fallen, alliances are shifting, and hidden ambitions are beginning to surface. While Zhao Liu chooses caution over righteousness and demons weave their schemes beneath the city's calm appearance, a far greater storm is already at the gates. Elsewhere, an impoverished scholar reveals hints of an impossible identity, conspirators prepare to betray a century-old friendship, and the city itself stands on the edge of disaster without realizing it. At the center of it all, Chen Ping'an has just destroyed the corrupted city god's golden body and uncovered a truth that could change everything. But with demonic formations awakening across the prefecture, powerful enemies moving in the shadows, and an ancient seal drawing the attention of immortals and monsters alike, the question remains, who is truly pulling the strings behind this catastrophe? This is the story of a city entering its darkest night. A mountain god had fallen. A prefectural city was drowning in demonic energy. And while righteous cultivators quietly calculated how to avoid responsibility, an impoverished scholar on the roadside was arguing with the ancient existence living inside his own body. This was not a chapter about one battle. It was about masks, the mask of righteousness, the mask of friendship, and the mask of a harmless scholar hiding something terrifying beneath his skin. Let us begin with the death of mountain god Chen. The disciples of Divine Edict sect had originally entered the mountains under Senior Aunt Fu's orders. Their mission was straightforward: locate the forbidden mountain god temple and deal with the illegal deity occupying it. But before they reached their destination, the land itself changed. The previously disturbed spiritual atmosphere of the mountains and waterways gradually settled. The chaotic fortune of the region became clear and stable again. For an experienced cultivator like Zhao Liu, that could only mean one thing: someone had already solved the problem. And when the group reached the temple, their suspicion became certainty. The shrine had been destroyed. The golden divine statue lay shattered. Mountain god Chen was dead. Now, to ordinary people, fragments of a broken statue would look like useless pieces of metal. To cultivators, the situation was entirely different. A mountain or river god's golden body was tied to incense, territory, divine authority, and the fortune accumulated through worship. Even broken fragments could possess enormous research value. So although Divine Edict sect had arrived too late to fight the mountain god themselves, the journey was hardly a failure. They collected several golden fragments from the ruins. And this detail matters because it immediately reveals the real nature of many cultivation sect missions. The official language may speak of eliminating evil and protecting the people. But sect disciples also travel to gain experience, collect opportunities, build reputations, and bring useful treasures home. Justice and profit often walk along the same road. Sometimes justice leads, sometimes profit does. Zhao Liu understood that better than anyone. After returning to the town, the old Taoist began thinking about another danger. Not a demon, not a formation, a relationship. Yang Huang and his spirit wife were no longer isolated figures who could easily be pressured. They now had powerful backing. The old estate's defensive formation remained intact. Yang Huang's talent gave him genuine hope of reaching the middle 5 tiers, and his wife was no longer an obstacle to his cultivation. Zhao Liu's political instincts immediately awakened. He looked at Yang Huang's future and saw danger for himself. Yang Huang had once belonged to Divine Edict sect and still possessed connections there. With enough time and the right opportunity, either Yang Huang or his wife might even receive official recognition from the imperial court. Imagine the consequences: a talented cultivator husband, a powerful spirit wife, possibly 2 above-tier experts standing together. At that point, everyone would suddenly remember how much they had always respected the happy couple. That is the cruel humor of the cultivation world. When your realm is low, people remember every rule you have broken. When your realm becomes high enough, they suddenly discover reasons why those rules were never so important. Zhao Liu knew he could not wait until Yang Huang became powerful. An apology offered after someone rises above you is fear. An apology offered before that rise can still be presented as sincerity. So the old Taoist swallowed his pride and visited the estate. He congratulated the couple. He admitted fault. He punished himself with wine. He even brought a small spirit tree as a gift. Yang Huang accepted everything politely. At first. Then the wine began to take effect and Yang Huang's buried anger emerged. He openly criticized Zhao Liu, scolded him, and continued even when his wife tried to calm the situation. Zhao Liu did not argue. He simply endured it. But do not mistake this scene for reconciliation between friends. Both men understood what was actually happening. Yang Huang needed to release his anger without creating another enemy. Zhao Liu needed to accept humiliation without losing the opportunity to repair the relationship. This was diplomacy in the martial world. Not warm, not honest, but useful. When Zhao Liu finally left, he understood that Yang Huang probably respected him even less than before. Still, the old Taoists considered the visit successful. They were not friends. Perhaps they would never become friends. But they were no longer active enemies. For Zhao Liu, that was enough. And honestly, this may be one of the most realistic pieces of character writing in the entire sequence. Not every conflict ends with brotherhood. Not every cup of wine creates loyalty. Sometimes the greatest victory is simply ensuring that the powerful person you offended no longer wants to destroy you. With that problem temporarily settled, the Divine Edict sect group began traveling north. Then they noticed something far worse, demonic energy, not hidden, not faint. It was spreading openly across Blusher Prefecture. One of Zhao Liu's disciples, the young sword cultivator Chen Ping'an, finally approached his master during their night camp on a mountain. He asked the obvious question: should they investigate? Should they warn the sect? Zhao Liu's answer revealed the difference between an idealistic disciple and an experienced survivor. Of course, he had noticed the demonic aura, but noticing danger did not mean volunteering to enter it. Their assigned mission had already been completed. At least on paper, the forbidden mountain god was dead. They had recovered valuable fragments. The younger disciples had gained experience. Their expedition would probably receive an excellent evaluation from the sect. Why risk everything now? This is where Zhao Liu offered a cold lesson about the bureaucracy of righteous cultivation factions. Doing extra good deeds can sometimes expose the fact that you avoid another responsibility. Suppose they sent a flying sword message to the sect warning them about Blusher Prefecture. Reinforcements might arrive. Investigators might compare travel routes and timelines. Then someone might ask an uncomfortable question. If Zhao Liu's group saw the demonic disturbance, why did they not intervene? The safest choice in his mind was silence. And this is a fascinating contradiction. Zhao Liu belongs to a righteous sect, yet his first instinct is not to protect the innocent. It is to protect the mission report. He is not necessarily a grand villain. That would be too simple. He is something more ordinary and perhaps more dangerous. A man who has spent so many years calculating consequences that morality has become another entry in the accounting book. Chen Ping'an praised his master's wisdom. But Zhao Liu was already thinking about another problem. The youngest disciple in the group was unusually perceptive. The other two might be fooled. That child probably could not. And once they returned to the mountain, one careless comment could cause serious trouble. So Zhao Liu began planning how to bind the boy to their secret. His solution was simple: shared guilt. Chen Ping'an had secretly kept one fragment of the dead mountain god's golden statue. Zhao Liu knew it. He demanded the fragment from his disciple and proposed giving it to the observant child. The strategy was ruthless but effective. If the child accepted the treasure, then everyone involved would share the same secret. Silence would become mutual protection. If the child refused, Zhao Liu had another weapon. As leader of the expedition, he would submit the official performance report. That gave him perfectly legal ways to cause trouble for the child's supporters. Notice the cultivation lesson hidden inside this small scene. Power in Shansha stories is not always his word technique. Our port can be a weapon, as sexual can be a formation, as superior's evaluation can cut a disciple's future more deeply than a blade. Chen Ping'an had no real choice. He gave his master the fragment. It was a large one too. The young swordsman claimed that he had intended to present as a birthday gift to his teacher. Zhao Liu accepted the excuse with a smile, and perhaps both men knew exactly how false that excuse sounded. Chen Ping'an returned to the fire and continued smiling. But the smile was no longer warmth. It was discipline. A disciple learning that his own master could take his treasure, expose his secret, and still call the entire arrangement guidance. Later, sitting alone near the cliff, Zhao Liu reflected bitterly on himself. The great Tao remained beyond his reach. So instead of comprehending heaven and earth, he had become skilled at manipulating people. That moment gives the old Taoist more depth than simple hypocrisy. He knows what he has become. He can see the distance between the immortal path he once dreamed of walking and the petty calculations that now occupy his mind. But awareness is not the same as change, and while Divine Edict Sect was quietly choosing not to interfere with Blusher Prefecture, another figure was leaving the city. Liu Chicheng. At first glance, there was nothing impressive about him. He looked like a poor young scholar wandering down the official road. He stopped outside a relay station and bought a bowl of hot tea. Then he began arguing with someone nobody else could see. The tea stall owner watched nervously. From his perspective, this impoverished scholar seemed to be talking to himself. And naturally, the owner's greatest concern was not possession, ancient immortals, or hidden cultivation realms. It was whether this strange customer could actually pay for the tea. Meanwhile, Liu Chicheng's one-sided argument revealed a bizarre relationship. Some ancient existence was hiding within him. Liu complained that this mysterious old monster constantly boasted about tremendous power, yet refused to act when danger appeared. He reminded the hidden presence that it had only escaped 1,000-year imprisonment because Liu accidentally entered an ancient tomb and damaged the formation holding it. From Liu's point of view, that meant the ancient expert owed him. And their relationship was clearly not one of respectful master and disciple. It sounded more like two troublesome people forced to share one roof. Liu mocked the ancient being's claims of power. He insulted his taste in clothing. He made fun of the mysterious pink Taoist robe. He even threatened to separate from him entirely. Then Liu's voice faded, his eyes changed, and suddenly the poor scholar was gone. Not physically. Something else was now looking through those eyes. His entire presence transformed. The difference was so complete that the same body now carried the quiet authority of a ruler traveling in disguise. That shift is crucial. Earlier, Zhao Liu and his disciples saw overwhelming demonic energy and chose to walk away. Now the story introduces someone whose true level is unknown, whose history reaches back at least 1,000 years, and who has been quietly hiding inside a young scholar. The contrast could not be clearer. The supposed righteous cultivators are afraid to enter the storm. The mysterious old monster calmly borrows a body, finishes a bowl of tea, and walks towards something greater. After leaving the road, Liu Chicheng's body entered an empty field filled with flowers. There, the disguise was finally removed. The traveler's bag opened by itself. A beautiful pink Taoist robe emerged. His ordinary clothing folded itself away. A golden hairpin rose and arranged his hair. Then the bag vanished into some kind of storage treasure. Whether it was an advanced pocket artifact, a spatial treasure, or a tiny independent world is less important than what the scene tells us. This person is operating on an entirely different level from most cultivators we have seen here. For low-level chi refiners, a shard of a broken divine statue is valuable enough to steal and scheme over. For this mysterious being, clothing moves through the air by thought, treasures vanish into hidden space, and walking into the clouds seems almost casual. That is Shansha power scaling at its best. The story does not need to announce a cultivation realm every 5 seconds. It shows hierarchy through behavior. One man schemes over fragments. Another dresses himself with spiritual artifacts and steps into the sky. Wearing that ridiculous yet somehow majestic pink robe, the mysterious figure rose higher and higher. The wind carried him upward. The poor scholar's appearance remained, but the presence inside him belonged to another age. After 1,000 years sealed away, the old existence was once again beneath the open heavens. And this leaves us with the real question. Why has he finally decided to move now? Is he heading toward the demonic disturbance that Divine Edict Sect refused to confront? Is Liu Chicheng merely a temporary vessel, or is the relationship between these two far more complicated than possession? And most importantly, when an ancient being who dismisses ordinary immortals as insignificant finally steps back onto the cultivation stage, who in Blusher Prefecture is powerful enough to make him care? The righteous cultivators have chosen silence. The demonic energy continues to rise. And above a sea of flowers, a man in pink has begun walking through the clouds. Something ancient has awakened. The next move may shake far more than one prefecture. Blusher Prefecture looked peaceful. That was the most terrifying part. Merchants still shouted over prices. Travelers still crowded the roads. Doors opened, coins changed hands, and ordinary people worried about ordinary things. Yet behind the walls of the prefectural office, one man had already made a terrible calculation. The city might not survive. And if tens of thousands of lives were about to be swallowed by demons, formations, and corrupted treasures, then Prefectural Overseer had decided that he would not be among the first to run. But before facing death himself, he wanted his children gone. At the rear entrance of the government compound, Liu Gaohua found a carriage waiting for him. Inside sat his elder sister, still carrying the traces of recent tears. The moment she saw her younger brother, some of the tension left her body, but her thoughts quickly returned to the person troubling her heart. Liu Gaohua, meanwhile, understood none of this. Why was there a carriage? Why was his sister already inside? And why was Uncle Song, the old aide who had served the prefectural office for years, ordering him to leave the city immediately? The answer was simple. His father had commanded it. For Liu Gaohua, that was not enough. The young scholar immediately refused. Whatever danger was coming, his father was still inside the city. His mother was there. His younger sister had not even been found yet. How could he simply climb into a carriage and escape? This reaction tells us something important about Liu Gaohua. He may consider himself useless, and his father may have spent years criticizing him. But cowardice is not his greatest weakness. His real problem is that emotion controls him faster than reason can catch up. Uncle Song understands that perfectly. So the old man gives him a brutal answer. Even if Liu Gaohua stays, what can he actually accomplish? He is a scholar without martial cultivation, magical treasures, or battlefield experience. Against a conspiracy involving demons and cultivators, determination alone cannot stop a claw, break a formation, or resist a soul-refining technique. That is one of the cruel truths of a cultivation world. Good intentions and courage matter, but when supernatural calamity descends, power matters too. Will still refuses. He turns toward the government office, intending to run back inside. And then the harmless old aide suddenly appears in front of him. No dramatic sword light, no explosion of spiritual energy. One moment the path is open, and the next, the old man is blocking it. Apparently, Uncle Song has not spent his entire life merely organizing documents and pouring tea for officials. The old fox has wandered the martial world before. He gives Liu Gaohua two choices: enter the carriage willingly, or be carried there unconscious. Liu Gaohua chooses stubbornness, and that forces Uncle Song to use the weapon he had hoped to avoid. Not fists, not a blade. A message from his father. The message is deliberately harsh. Prefectural Overseer Liu supposedly complains that his son has failed to satisfy him for 20 years and should stop creating more trouble. Those words strike far deeper than any palm technique. Liu Gaohua immediately goes quiet. His eyes redden, and beneath his anger is something much older. The pain of a son who has always believed that his father respects everyone except him. He remembers all the small wounds accumulated over the years. A father endlessly occupied with official work. A father who could debate philosophy with visitors for hours. A father willing to play Go for an entire afternoon. A father generous with praise when discussing the talented children of friends. But when it came to his own son, coldness, criticism, and after Liu Gaohua perforly in the imperial examination, even mockery. Yet faced with the possibility of true separation, those old grievances suddenly seem very small. This is one of the chapter's strongest emotional ideas. People often imagine that reconciliation requires a grand speech. Sometimes it does not. Sometimes catastrophe simply reveals which resentments were deep and which were only dust resting on the heart. Liu Gaohua asks about his younger sister. There is no comforting answer. People are still searching for her. Again, he hesitates. Again, Uncle Song becomes impatient. The old man scolds him for being too emotional and indecisive, asking how someone like that could ever accomplish anything great. Liu Gaohua fires back with bitter honesty. In his eyes, his parents do not value him. His younger sister does not respect him. So what great achievement could possibly be expected from someone as useless as himself? That answer even leaves the experienced Uncle Song momentarily helpless, because this is not merely stubbornness anymore. It is the confession of a young man who has built his identity from years of perceived disappointment. Finally, Liu Gaohua surrenders, not because he suddenly believes escape is honorable, not because he stops worrying about his family. He leaves because he begins to understand that remaining behind may only create another burden for the people he wants to protect. The carriage departs, and as it rolls through Blusher Prefecture, the contrast becomes almost unbearable. The city is alive, busy roads, open shops, travelers moving from place to place, people bargaining, laughing, working, and worrying about tomorrow. They do not know that powerful forces may already be positioning them as sacrifices in a struggle they cannot even see. This is where the scale of the danger becomes clear. General Ma has already concluded that the enemy's boldness suggests serious preparation. This is not likely to end with a few scattered deaths. The history of Colorful Garment Nation contains disasters officially described as plagues, yet some of these so-called outbreaks were actually the work of demonic cultivators. Sinister formations or corrupted treasures that had escaped control. Tens of thousands could die. Whole regions could become fields of abandoned bodies. People might be too terrified even to collect the dead. And Blusher Prefecture has seen such horror before. The enormous unmarked burial ground outside the region is not merely eerie scenery. It is evidence. A grave without names is still history. And history is warning the city that supernatural catastrophe does not always arrive with heavenly thunder. Sometimes it begins while the streets are still crowded. The old, aided driving the carriage understands something else sees well. Prefectural Overseer Liu has lied? Not about everything. Reinforcements truly are coming. A flying sword message really was sent through Taoist Chongmiao. The spiritual horn force really does intend to dispatch cultivators, and the colored Luan truly is fast, but not that fast. With no passengers, the spirit bird might reach the prefectural city by noon the next day. Carrying several cultivators, it may not even reach northern Blusher Prefecture before nightfall. Why would an upright official deceive his own allies about something so important? Because Prefectural Overseer Liu has entered a battlefield where moral is another kind of formation. Think about his strategy. Tell everyone that help will arrive by noon. Give the defenders a clear horizon. Make them believe they only need to endure for a limited time. Then, once officials, cultivators, soldiers, and local powers begin fighting the hidden enemy, retreat becomes far more difficult. After blood has been spilled, demons exposed, and grudges formed, people will no longer be defending the city purely out of righteousness. They will also be fighting for themselves. That is a very scholar-like scheme. Not strong enough to overpower every enemy directly? Then manipulate the board, control information, create commitment, turn hesitation into momentum. A cultivator fights with spiritual energy. A general fights with troops. A desperate scholar may fight with the hearts of everyone around him. And as Uncle Song reflects, the calculations of a scholar pushed into a corner can be frightening indeed. There is another layer to the prefect's plan. Suppose the demons remain hidden until the promised arrival time. That is acceptable too. The prefect believes he can provoke the man force the conspiracy into the open. And suppose they refuse to react even after he openly challenges them? Then the city gains more time. Other forces gather. The spiritual horn force draws closer. The balance of power improves. In other words, Prefectural Overseer Liu has created a strategy where delay itself becomes useful. This is not the scheme of a fearless hero charging forward with a sword. It is the work of a terrified man who has realized that fear does not excuse surrender. And Uncle Song knows exactly how afraid his superior is. Before collecting Liu Gaohua, the two men spoke privately. Prefectural Overseer Liu admitted something surprisingly practical. Had the disaster threatened only a small number of lives, he might have fled. There is no performance of impossible purity here. No claim that he has never feared death. But the number of innocent people now at risk is simply too large. He cannot make himself abandon them. After a lifetime of studying the teachings of sages, those books no longer feel like dead words to him. They are more like companions, old teachers, old friends. And he believes that if he throws away everything those books taught him the moment danger arrives, then even surviving would become meaningless. The extraordinary part is how he says this. His face is pale. His teeth are trembling. His legs are unsteady. There is nothing outwardly heroic about him. And that may be exactly why the moment is powerful. In many cultivation stories, courage belongs to the person who feels no fear. But real moral courage is often the opposite. It is knowing exactly how frightened you are and acting anyway. Prefectural Overseer Liu is not suddenly transformed into a sword immortal. His cultivation does not rise. He does not comprehend a heavenly Tao. He simply decides that there is one line his heart will not allow him to cross. For Uncle Song, that is enough. The old aide has spent time in the martial world. He has likely seen people with greater cultivation, sharper weapons, and far more confidence. Yet his frightened superior earns new respect from him. Sometimes a scholar's Tao heart is revealed not in meditation, but in the moment when escape is still possible. The carriage continues south. Uncle Song pushes the horse faster. Another worry enters his mind. His own mischievous disciple is missing. He searched but could not find the child. Now all he can do is hope that the disciple stays far away from the approaching storm. The old man's frustration reveals another theme running beneath the chapter. Everyone wants to protect someone. The prefect tries to save the city while secretly sending away his children. Lu Gaohua wants to remain because he fears in his family. Uncle Song obeys the prefect while worrying about his disciple. Each person is pulled between duty and attachment, and in a peaceful age, perhaps those two things can coexist. During catastrophe, they begin tearing people in opposite directions. The old aide can only lament the absurdity of the cultivation world. The Jianghu is muddy. The mountains are filled with dangerous winds. The courts of officials are complicated. The paths of immortals are worse. Is a peaceful life really such an unreasonable wish? Unfortunately, elsewhere in Blusher Prefecture, we are reminded that peaceful appearances cannot be trusted. In the northern part of the city stands an ordinary rice shop. It has operated for roughly 20 years. Its owner is a tall, thin old man who rarely speaks. His long-serving assistants are equally quiet. They sell decent goods at fair prices and regularly visit the city god pavilion to burn incense. To the neighbors, they are respectable merchants. Nothing strange, nothing dangerous. And that should immediately make us suspicious, because in this kind of world, 20 years of ordinary behavior can be either a peaceful life or a very patient disguise. That day, 2 visitors arrive, a middle-aged couple apparently honest and unremarkable. The shop closes early under the simple explanation that distant relatives have come to visit. No one questions it. Inside, however, the atmosphere changes. The shopkeeper and his guests sit at a table covered in food. The 3 attendants remain to one side, eating sunflower seeds and clearly understanding their lower position in whatever organization has gathered here. The visiting man does not waste time on manners. He attacks the meal as if the chicken personally offended him, drinking so carelessly that nearly as much wine lands outside his mouth as inside it. The woman is far more interesting. She reaches to her face and peels away a disguise. Beneath it is an appearance so unpleasant that the 3 attendants are shocked. For a moment, they privately conclude that the expensive disguise was money well spent. Then she removes another layer. And suddenly, the attendants are staring at an extraordinary beauty. This small scene is humorous, but it is also perfectly suited to the larger chapter. Nothing is what it first appears to be. The safe city is under threat. The weak old aide knows martial arts. The cowardly official chooses to stand his ground. The humble rice shop hides a secret gathering, and one face may conceal another face, which itself conceals the truth. The woman even teases the attendants by pretending that another mask might still remain. But this time, the beautiful face is real, or at least she claims it is. In Blusher Prefecture right now, perhaps believing any face completely would be foolish. The rice shop owner quickly ends the joking. There is serious business to discuss. The visiting man, still focused on eating and drinking, casually indicates that the woman should explain the situation, and that is where the tension tightens again. Because while Prefectural Overseer Liu is preparing his side of the board, unknown figures are gathering quietly in an ordinary shop. One side is sending children away. One side is calculating how long defenders can hold. Reinforcements are moving, but more slowly than most people realize. Hidden enemies may already be inside the city, and the common people continue living beneath a sky they do not yet know is cracking. So the real question is no longer whether Blusher Prefecture faces danger. The question is who has been preparing longer. The frightened scholar who has finally chosen to fight, or the people behind those carefully hidden faces. Because in the Jianghu, the deadliest battle often begins long before the first sword is drawn. 100 years of friendship can sound eternal, right up until an immortal treasure is placed on the table. And while one group of cultivators quietly plans betrayal over an ordinary meal, Chen Ping'an is fighting a corrupted god with nothing but his fists, his judgment, and one dangerous purpose: to discover the secret behind an enemy who refuses to stay dead. These two scenes may seem separate, but they reveal the same law of the cultivation world. Power is never only about strength. Sometimes survival depends on knowing where to stand, whom to trust, and exactly when to abandon the rules. Far from Chen Ping'an's battlefield, three sinister cultivators gather around a table and discuss business, not honorable business. The kind where allies become targets and old friendships are measured against magical artifacts. The most important figure at the table is Old Demon Mi, a dangerous cultivator whose alliance with immortal-colored glaze has lasted more than a century. Under normal circumstances, that history should mean something, but these are cultivators walking the darker paths. For them, 100 years of companionship can be erased by a single treasure valuable enough to shake the Tao heart. A husband and wife pair arrives with troubling information. A young sword immortal surnamed Fu, connected to Divine Edict sect, has joined the cultivators traveling south with the spiritual horn force. That information immediately changes the situation. The couple claims that even the senior members of the spiritual force are treating this young sword cultivator with extraordinary respect. And in the world of Unsheathed, that behavior matters. Powerful cultivators do not suddenly become courteous without reason. Respect can reveal hidden backing. Fear can reveal hidden strength. And sometimes, one guest joining a traveling party is enough to return the calculations of every demon and rog cultivator within hundreds of miles. Old Demon Mi understands this immediately. His concern is not merely whether the information is true. He wants to know how the couple obtained it. The answer is almost more alarming than the intelligence itself. Their network has apparently reached deep into mountain cultivation forces. These two may present themselves as small-time operators, but information is its own form of cultivation power. A cultivator who knows the enemy's movement before the sword is drawn has already taken half a step toward victory. The couple now offers Old Demon Mi a choice: remain loyal to immortal-colored glaze and face the consequences, or betray him first. Their proposed strategy is ruthless but efficient. Activate the formation earlier than expected. Eliminate immortal-colored glaze quickly. Use the resulting chaos to seize the true target treasure and escape before the larger situation collapses. The division of rewards is equally cold. Old Demon Mi can take the dead man's personal possessions and even the valuable colored glaze bowl. But one particular seal belongs to the couple. And here we see something important about demonic alliances. They are not built upon trust. They are built upon clearly defined greed. Everyone knows the others may betray them. So the only temporary stability comes from making sure each participant desires a different reward. Old Demon Mi does not immediately agree. Instead, he turns to his youngest disciple and orders him to perform a divination using copper coins. The young disciple demands a share of the reward, and behind the strange humor of their exchange lies something darker. Even among master and disciples, affection is uncertain. The boy's real question is not how much treasure he will receive. It is whether he will survive long enough to spend it. Old Demon Mi promises that he will. The disciple then uses blood to perform the divination. The result predicts great fortune. That is all Old Demon Mi needs. The burden of hesitation disappears, and the century-old friendship is sentenced to death. He agrees to activate the formation ahead of schedule and proposes that the three senior cultivators join forces to kill immortal-colored glaze as quickly as possible. This is not an emotional betrayal. That makes it worse. Old Demon Mi treats the decision like a merchant adjusting the price of rice. The middle-aged man even tests him, questioning whether he can truly murder a friend of more than 100 years. Old Demon Mi's answer is essentially a challenge. Would the man sacrifice even his own wife for an immortal treasure? The uncomfortable reaction says everything. The joke is dark, but the meaning is serious. In this part of the cultivation world, Greed does not merely corrupt people. Greed becomes a philosophy. And while those cultivators calculate betrayal from behind closed doors, another battle is tearing a sacred place apart. At the city god pavilion, Liu Gaoxin stands outside the main battlefield, too frightened to approach. Before her is an astonishing sight. Chen Ping'an is fighting city god Shen Wen, whose divine form has already fallen into demonic corruption. The difference in appearance is enormous. Shen Wen towers over the hall like a golden war deity. Every strike carries enough force to tear apart walls and crush the stone flooring. Against him, Chen Ping'an appears almost ridiculously small. But appearances are deceptive. Chen Ping'an has already shattered powerful formations through martial arts, and now he continues attacking with the deity drumming technique. One sequence follows another. 21 additional strikes hammer into the corrupted city god. The effect is visible. The divine golden coating begins to break away. Cracks spread across the statue-like body, and dark demonic energy leaks from the damaged shell. Against an ordinary opponent, that should be the beginning of the end. But Shen Wen restores himself. The broken golden fragments return. The cracks close, the damaged body becomes whole again, and this is where the fight becomes more than a contest of physical strength. Chen Ping'an is not merely trying to defeat the city god, he is studying him. That distinction is central to Chen Ping'an's fighting style. He is willing to suffer because every exchange gives him information. Every punch tests a weakness. Every injury teaches him something about the battlefield. Liu Gaoxin cannot understand why Chen Ping'an refuses to immediately use his talismans or flying swords. From her perspective, he is choosing the hardest possible method. She watches him get smashed through the hall. She sees Shen Wen tear out a massive pillar and swing it like a weapon. She sees Chen Ping'an block devastating attacks with his own body and continue advancing. At one point, the impact drives him down into the earth. At another, he is kicked out of the hall and sent tumbling across the courtyard. Shen Wen challenges him to return. Chen Ping'an gets back up and charges directly inside. To Liu Gaoxin, this must look like the courage of an immortal hero. But there is another layer. Chen Ping'an is using Shen Wen as a whetstone. He remembers the pressure of his earlier battle with Ma Kuxuan, and he is deliberately using this monstrous opponent to temper both body and spirit. This is a recurring principle in martial cultivation. A safe opponent may improve technique, but a terrifying opponent reveals truth. When death is genuinely possible, hesitation becomes visible. Weak foundations are exposed. A martial artist discovers whether his body, instincts, and heart can remain united under pressure. Chen Ping'an is testing precisely that, but he also reaches an uncomfortable conclusion. With fists alone, victory is unlikely. The problem is not simply that Shen Wen is powerful. The problem is regeneration. No matter how much damage Chen Ping'an inflicts, the corrupted city god appears capable of recovering while remaining within the city god hall. Chen Ping'an begins thinking beyond martial techniques. He studies the battlefield itself, and then the answer comes to him. In the cultivation world, territory can become part of a cultivator's strength. A pocket treasure may contain a small domain governed by its own rules. Sages connected to schools, academies, battlefields, or other sacred territories may gain advantages while fighting within the places aligned with their paths. Chen Ping'an realizes that Shen Wen may possess the same kind of advantage. Inside the city god hall, the corrupted deity is fighting on home ground. The building is not merely shelter, it is part of his power. That means Chen Ping'an's problem changes. He does not need to immediately overpower Shen Wen. He needs to move him. So Chen Ping'an begins trying to lure the city god outside. He deliberately creates openings. He even allows himself to be injured and knocked beyond the hall, hoping Shen Wen's killing instinct will overcome his caution. It fails. Despite his corruption and confusion, Shen Wen instinctively refuses to leave his territory. That reaction confirms Chen Ping'an's theory. And this is one of the most interesting strategic moments in the fight. Chen Ping'an gains knowledge, but that knowledge does not produce an easy solution. Knowing the weakness of an enemy is useless when the enemy refuses to expose it. Meanwhile, time is becoming a greater threat. Chen Ping'an still has to reach the prefectural office and reveal the true mastermind behind the disaster. He cannot spend the entire night turning one stubborn city god into a training partner. So the experiment ends. The real assault begins. Chen Ping'an increases the pressure with his fists while releasing 1st and 15th from the sword-nurturing gourd. The two flying swords strike from different directions, one pale and one green, circling Shen Wen while Chen Ping'an attacks from close range. Now the battle becomes a layered killing formation. The fists control the center. The flying swords attack openings. Shen Wen must defend against threats coming from multiple angles, while Chen Ping'an continues pressing him physically. For Liu Gaoxin, watching from nearby, the scene is almost impossible to follow. Only moments earlier, she thought Chen Ping'an was simply a martial artist, stubbornly exchanging blows with a giant deity. Now she realizes he has been holding back an entirely different method of fighting. Still, regeneration remains the core problem. So Chen Ping'an finally pays a real price to end the battle. He uses a precious golden demon-suppressing talisman shaped by the power of a treasure pagoda. The talisman succeeds, but it is consumed in the process. That sacrifice matters. Powerful talismans in Shanxia stories often represent stored opportunity. Once used, they cannot casually be replaced. Spending one means the current obstacle has been judged more important than whatever danger may appear tomorrow. Under its suppression, Shen Wen's golden divine body finally collapses. The corrupted city god is reduced to only a small collection of golden fragments. Among the remains lies the small azure wooden box. Chen Ping'an collects everything. The battle is over, but the mystery is not. Because defeating Shen Wen was only one part of a much larger conspiracy. And now Chen Ping'an finally turns his attention toward the frightened young girl who has watched the entire battle. He asks her name. She introduces herself as Liu Gaoxin. Chen Ping'an initially misunderstands the sound of her name, thinking it resembles the word for happiness. The misunderstanding is quickly corrected, and the meaning behind her actual name is more thoughtful. Her parents hoped she would rise high in life without losing the warmth of the human world. That idea quietly fits the themes surrounding Chen Ping'an himself. Cultivation constantly asks people to climb higher. But what remains of a person when they reach the summit? The conspirators we saw earlier are also climbing. Yet friendship, loyalty, and human bonds mean less and less to them with every treasure placed within reach. Liu Gaoxin's name represents the opposite hope, that reaching a high place does not require becoming cold. The peaceful conversation does not last long. Chen Ping'an discovers that she is Liu Gaohua's younger sister, which immediately connects her to the prefectural office and the crisis waiting there. He tells her that he has met her brother and is now heading toward her father with crucial information. The supposed old immortal behind the ongoing events is not a savior. He is the true culprit. With that, the two set off across the city. They race over rooftops and walls, but Liu Gaoxin quickly discovers the difference between practicing martial arts and possessing Chen Ping'an's terrifying physical foundation. She soon struggles to keep pace. Chen Ping'an stops and allows her to recover. Then comes a small moment of comedy after all the violence. Liu Gaoxin assumes that someone with flying swords must naturally be a great sword immortal and suggests that he simply fly her to their destination. Even worse for Chen Ping'an, she addresses him as though he were some ancient master. For a young man who has just fought a towering corrupted deity with his bare hands, being mistaken for an elderly sword immortal might be the one attack he has no technique to answer. He says nothing and continues traveling the old-fashioned way. Liu Gaoxin is left increasingly confused. This mysterious sword immortal fights like a martial artist, carries flying swords but refuses to ride one, looks young despite being addressed as an old master, and somehow remains patient through all of her questions. But beneath the humor, the chapter leaves us with several dangerous threads tightening at once. Chen Ping'an has discovered more evidence of the conspiracy and is racing toward the prefectural office. Old Demon Mi has agreed to betray a century-old friend. A hidden formation is about to be activated early. Divine Edict Sect has entered the board through a mysterious young sword immortal. And somewhere behind all of these moving pieces, different factions are calculating how much blood they are willing to spill for a treasure that has not even been secured yet. The corrupted city god has fallen, but that victory may have been only the smallest battle of the night. Because Chen Ping'an is now heading directly toward the people who believe they are still controlling the game. The real question is no longer whether he can defeat another powerful enemy. It is whether he can reach the truth before betrayal, formations, and hidden cultivators turn the entire city into a killing ground. Blusher Prefecture was already standing at the edge of disaster. But the most dangerous people in the city were not the demons showing their fangs. They were the old monsters smiling at one another, each convinced that betrayal had finally begun. From the eastern wall, immortal-colored glaze sensed the collapse of the city god hall and immediately understood the scale of the disaster. Shen Wen's divine golden body had been destroyed. For an ordinary cultivator, that might sound like the death of a single local deity. But in the cultivation world, a city god is not merely a guardian statue. His existence is connected to incense, mortal faith, local destiny, and the invisible fortune of the land itself. Destroy the golden body completely, and Blusher Prefecture might survive tonight, only to suffer for years afterward. That was why the old immortal put on a magnificent performance for General Ma. He spoke of duty, sacrifice, protecting the city, even risking his own cultivation to rescue the wounded city god. General Ma, who had spent his life judging danger through armies rather than immortal schemes, accepted the explanation. He even offered demon-slaying arrows and elite soldiers. Immortal-colored glaze refused. And that refusal tells us everything. He was not rushing toward the city god pavilion to save anyone. He wanted to reach the ruins alone. Leaving General Ma to defend the eastern gate, the old cultivator descended from the wall and crossed the rooftops with the lightness of a wandering immortal. Within moments, he reached the pavilion. Yet he did not rush blindly into the ruins. This man was cautious. With a wave of his sleeve, he released a cloud of yellow talismans. Smoke twisted through the air, and the papers transformed into sword-bearing women dressed in white. These were not ordinary servants. They were spiritual entities under his control, scouts and guards created through methods that blurred the line between immortal technique and heretical cultivation. He sent them ahead. Only then did he enter. Inside the halls, immortal-colored glaze noticed something important. The ordinary clay statues had escaped destruction. Why? Because old Demon Me had no reason to waste precious incense power on empty shells. A statue containing no divine spirit was only baked earth-shaped into a majestic form. In a cultivation conflict, appearance means nothing. What matters is whether a vessel carries divine authority, accumulated incense, spiritual consciousness, or some other form of supernatural value. Soon, the women in white discovered another loss. Their companion, the woman in colorful robes, was gone. Not injured, not hiding, completely defeated and returned to her original form with no obvious remnant soul for immortal-colored glaze to detect. That discovery disturbed him. Whoever had fought inside the pavilion possessed far greater strength than he had expected. Then something answered his summons. A blood-colored sword flew from the crown of an ancient cypress tree and landed in his hand. Immortal-colored glaze examined it carefully. When he detected no trace of old Demon Me's demonic aura, his tension eased slightly. This was important. It suggested that old Demon Me had not yet uncovered every secret hidden inside the pavilion. Because there had been another treasure here, the City God Protection Seal, an Iron Essence official seal tied to the authority of Blusher Prefecture itself. And now it was missing. For one dangerous moment, immortal-colored glaze suspected the terrifying figure manipulating events from behind the scenes. Perhaps that great cultivator had secretly ordered someone to seize the seal first. But after thinking it through, he dismissed the idea. A middle five-tier cultivator might kill for such a treasure. A wandering cultivator might gamble his entire life for it. But the hidden mastermind behind this chaos stood on a completely different level. His ambitions were not limited to stealing one prefectural seal. He wanted nations to bleed. He wanted Colorful Garment Nation, Ancient Elm Nation, and their neighbors dragged into war. For a figure planning turmoil across the central lands of Eastern treasured vile continent, stealing a single local treasure through petty deception would almost be beneath consideration. And that difference in scale is worth noticing. In Zhanxia worlds, power is not measured only by who can destroy a mountain. Sometimes it is measured by the size of a person's scheme. Small cultivators fight over artifacts. Great cultivators fight over sect inheritances. But the truly frightening players move dynasties and nations like pieces on a board. Immortal colored glaze entered the shattered city god hall and finally found his real objective, a fallen mural wall. Across it the dance danced 81 painted beauties with flowing sleeves. Most had been damaged during the destruction. Only a portion remained, intact. The old man was heartbroken, but not because he appreciated art. He confirmed that Noon was watching, deployed his sword-bearing women as guards, and produced a small 7-colored bowl. At once, radiant light spread around him. This was the treasure connected to his title, the colored glaze bowl. The old cultivator activated the artifact. Then the figures painted on the mural began to move. One after another, the surviving women emerged from the wall and entered the bowl. The most complete spirits went first. Then those whose appearances survived despite damage to their painted clothing or limbs. What remained behind were the badly ruined figures. Their spiritual forms seemed aware that they were being abandoned. Faint cries filled the broken wall. And here the chapter reveals the true nature of immortal colored glaze. Until now, he had played the role of a concerned senior defending Blusher Prefecture. But his relationship with these spirits was entirely possessive. He valued what could still be used. He harvested the strongest. Then, unwilling to leave even the mural's spiritual environment behind, he extracted the background itself and placed that into his treasure as well. The damaged spirits were left homeless on an empty wall. Their grief intensified. Immortal colored glaze looked at them, lamented his losses, and destroyed the entire wall with one palm. Not mercy, not rescue, erasure. This is the cruelty of many heretical cultivators in Unsheathed. They can speak beautifully about destiny, cultivation, and opportunity. But underneath those grand words, living beings are often reduced to materials. Useful souls are treasures. Damaged souls are waste. And while immortal colored glaze was secretly harvesting his prize, another old monster was watching. Back at the rice shop, old Demon Me had already sent his people into motion. The young attendant eagerly departed on his own mission, while old Demon Me entered a secluded alley with the middle-aged husband and wife. The woman questioned him directly. The city god's golden body had been transformed into one of old Demon Mai's puppets. Even after losing some strength in the process, such a puppet should not have exploded for no reason. So was there another powerful cultivator hiding inside the prefectural city? Old Demon Me did not know, and the uncertainty infuriated him. His greatest shield had vanished. His carefully controlled situation was becoming unpredictable. Therefore, despite the cost, he activated a damaged mystical technique capable of observing distant mountains and rivers through his palm. This section gives us another useful look at the brutal inequality of cultivation. Old Demon Me had obtained only part of the inheritance. Because the technique was incomplete, he had to sacrifice a drop of precious heart blood every time he used it. Worse, a sufficiently powerful target could notice the observation and trace it back to him. Compare that with major immortal sects. Their disciples inherit complete methods refined across generations. Weaknesses are corrected. Side effects are reduced. Cultivation routes become clearer. That is one reason powerful mountain forces remain powerful. Inheritance creates advantage. Then advantage protects inheritance. Meanwhile, wandering cultivators search ruins, steal fragments, experiment on themselves, and sometimes destroy their own futures through flawed techniques. It is easy to call them reckless. But the cultivation world was never a fair road. Old Demon paid the price. Blood emerged from his palm and transformed into a misty image of the city god pavilion. There he saw immortal colored glaze. He saw the white-clothed women. Then he focused his vision and witnessed the old immortal kneeling beside the mural with the colored glaze bowl. Old Demon Malad. In his eyes, fortune had finally turned in his favor. His old friend had voluntarily entered the territory where their trap could close around him. But then the woman beside old Demon Me noticed the treasure in the image, the colored glaze bowl. Her interest was obvious. Old Demon Mai immediately ended technique and turned on her with suspicion. Would she dare compete with him for the artifact? The woman smiled sweetly and denied any such intention. Naturally, old Demon Mai believed none of it. These people were allies only because cooperation remained profitable. The moment a treasure appeared, friendship became calculation. And then old Demon Mai reached an even darker conclusion. Immortal Colored Glaze had always claimed that his purpose was the mural. There was logic in that explanation. The painted women had absorbed incense power for centuries, developing genuine spiritual qualities. His artifact could shelter souls taken from burial grounds, and the mural spirits might help him raise even stronger yin entities. But suddenly, old Demon Mai reconsidered everything. What if the treasure everyone had been searching for had never been hidden in the prefectural office? What if it had never been in the Zhao clan residence? What if the mysterious seal connected to Mount Longhu's heavenly master residence had been hidden inside the city god pavilion from the beginning? In that case, Immortal Colored Glaze had deceived him. Old Demon Mai and his disciples had taken risks, fought enemies, and helped create chaos. Meanwhile, the old immortal might have intended to collect every reward for himself. Was old Demon Mai's conclusion correct? We do not know yet. But that almost does not matter. In a demonic alliance, suspicion can be as destructive as proof. Once trust is gone, every coincidence becomes betrayal, every secret becomes conspiracy, and every old friend becomes prey. Old Demon Me made his decision. If Immortal Colored Glaze had abandoned loyalty, then he would respond in kind. Above Blusher Prefecture, the weather seemed to reflect the approaching collision. Clouds gathered, the clear sky darkened, pressure descended over the city. Yet beyond the southern gate, a very different kind of danger was unfolding. A carriage carrying Liu Gaohua and his sister was leaving the prefectural city under the protection of their old aide. They had barely begun their escape when an impoverished scholar appeared on the road, waving frantically, Liu Qicheng, the same ridiculous scholar whose situation was far more complicated than anyone in that carriage understood. The old aide immediately became cautious. The city was filled with monsters and conspiracies. An unexpected acquaintance appearing on the escape road could easily be bait, but Liu Gaohua's sister recognized the scholar and happily confirmed that he was her friend. Liu Gaohua was much less enthusiastic. He wondered why Liu Qicheng, who should have left long ago, was still wandering around. The carriages stopped. Then Liu Qicheng began his performance. He tried to shame Liu Gaohua into returning to the city. How could the son of the prefectural overseer flee while his parents remained in danger? Should a scholar not face death for righteousness? Should a loyal soul not defend his family? Should a man not stand before danger without retreat? The speech was passionate. The problem was that Liu Qicheng himself barely believed it. His real reason was hidden inside his own body. The terrifying old monster controlling him had temporarily returned control and promised that, as long as Liu Qicheng persuaded the carriage to turn back, all remaining problems could be settled effortlessly. Liu Qicheng's difficulty was simple. Liu Gaohua refused to cooperate with the heroic script. He had no interest in returning to a city filled with demons simply because a poor scholar delivered a dramatic speech. Inside his heart, Liu Qicheng panicked. His future brother-in-law was not moved by righteousness at all. Then control of Liu Qicheng's body disappeared again. He made a seemingly simple stomp. The earth answered with an explosion. Dust erupted across the official road like a massive yellow dragon tearing through the land. Everyone froze. Liu Qicheng himself was probably the most frightened of them all. But after realizing what the old monster had done through his body, he immediately took advantage of the moment. With all the dignity he could manufacture, he announced that he was secretly a golden core tier immortal. And honestly, this scene is hilarious because Liu Qicheng is simultaneously the least convincing and most convincing fake expert imaginable. His personality screams fraud, but the power displayed through him is completely real. The old aide had witnessed a force that perhaps only Colorful Garment Nation's greatest martial grandmasters could match. No, we had to reconsider everything. Could this shameless scholar really be an immortal expert traveling through the mortal world for amusement? That is a classic cultivation world problem. Appearances cannot be trusted. An old beggar may be his word immortal. A foolish scholar may contain an ancient monster. A weak youth carrying a bamboo basket may possess capable of shattering a carefully prepared formation. Speaking of that youth, Chen Ping'an and Liu Gaoxin had reached the rooftops near the prefectural office. Their path suddenly stopped. Across the walls and high buildings, powerful Mohis-crafted bows were already aimed at them. Armored soldiers guarded the compound. Liu Gaoxin recognized them as men likely left behind by General Ma. but they might not recognize her quickly enough. She suggested explaining their identities. Chen Ping'an looked at the darkening sky. Time was becoming more valuable than safety, so he made a decision perfectly consistent with his character. They would separate. Liu Gaoxin could approach carefully and explain herself. Chen Ping'an would go ahead alone. His friends might still be in danger, and every delay increased the risk. This is one of the quiet strengths of Chen Ping'an. He does not rush recklessly because he enjoys danger. He rushes when responsibility outweighs hesitation. There is a major difference. A reckless fighter seeks battle. Chen Ping'an repeatedly seeks the fastest path toward protecting people, even when that path places him directly in the line of attack. Liu Gaoxin agreed without hesitation, still addressing him with the exaggerated respect she had developed after witnessing his abilities. Chen Ping'an took one deep breath. Then he leaped. A specially crafted arrow screamed toward him. Instead of retreating, Chen Ping'an rose higher, placed a foot upon the flying arrow itself, and used it as a stepping stone to continue toward the prefectural office. One movement, but what a statement! While the old monsters of Blusher Prefecture were spying, plotting, stealing souls, calculating betrayals, and fighting over hidden treasures, Chen Ping'an was doing something far simpler, moving forward. The question now is whether simplicity can survive a battlefield built from centuries of schemes. Because immortal-colored glaze believes he is stealing treasure from the ruins, old demon me believes he has discovered betrayal. Lu Chicheng is carrying something far beyond his own understanding, and Chen Ping'an is heading directly toward the center of the storm. When all these paths finally collide, who will still be controlling the game? And who will discover that they were merely another piece on the board? A city can survive demons at its gates, but what happens when the demons are already inside the homes, the temples, and even the gods meant to protect the people? Chen Ping'an returns to Blusher Prefecture with a terrifying warning. The respected old immortal Huang may not be a savior at all. And while everyone debates whom to trust, the entire city begins to bleed. The young martial artist enters the prefectural office under a storm of arrows. These are not ordinary guards. General Ma's border veterans react like men who have survived real battlefields. Their formation is disciplined, their shots overlap, and even when Liu Gaoxin shouts that Chen Ping'an is an ally, they do not immediately relax. That small detail matters. This crisis is no longer a matter for wandering heroes alone. Mortal soldiers are standing against supernatural enemies, and their survival depends not on cultivation realms, but discipline, coordination, and the willingness to hold formation when facing things they do not understand. Chen Ping'an reaches the main hall and immediately exposes the most dangerous possibility. The mysterious elder who performed at the lake may be connected to the disaster. Before explanations can begin, Taoist Chong Miao's copper-armored warrior attacks. The construct is powerful enough to contend with a strong early-stage martial artist, yet Chen Ping'an receives its fist with one hand and stops it completely. No grand technique, no dramatic stance, just overwhelming physical foundation. For those following Chen Ping'an's path, this is one of the defining differences between him and many conventional cultivators. His strength is rarely about displaying a magnificent spell. His body itself has been refined into a weapon, and when supernatural methods crash into him, his first instinct is often frighteningly simple: stand firm and endure. Taoist Chong Miao is not impressed. In fact, his pride is wounded. He argues that accusing old immortal Huang makes no sense. Why would someone plotting against the city warn its defenders? And if such a powerful expert truly is the enemy, what hope do they have anyway? It is a reasonable argument. That is exactly why it is dangerous. The armored general gives the wiser response. Demonic cultivators survive by deception. An enemy may save you today because doing so places you exactly where he needs you tomorrow. In the cultivation world, kindness without caution can become a blade placed against your own throat. Then, Liu Gaoxin provides the missing story. She explains that she and Chen Ping'an encountered the female bone spirit connected to the lake performance. After a dangerous confrontation, they discovered that even the city god and his subordinate deities had been corrupted. But Liu Gaoxin hides one important truth. The sword expert who intervened earlier had warned her not to expose his identity. So she rapidly invents a believable version of events, describing a mysterious sword immortal who rescued them before retreating to recover from serious injuries. Chen Ping'an says nothing, but internally recognizes her quick thinking. And this moment is more important than it looks. Lu Gaoxin is young, impulsive, and sometimes reckless, yet she understands that information itself can be a weapon. Compared with inexperienced youths Chen Ping'an has encountered before, she can adapt under pressure. That skill may save more lives than raw courage. Unfortunately, there is no time for further debate. A wounded soldier arrives with horrifying news. Ordinary citizens are attacking their own families and neighbors. Blood leaks from their eyes. Their strength and speed have risen beyond normal human limits. They ignore injuries that should stop them. At the same time, strange crimson phenomena are appearing throughout the city. Wherever this blood-red influence spreads, as vegetation dies and fish float lifelessly to the surface, the entire situation changes at once. This is no longer a hunt for one hidden demon. Someone has prepared a citywide catastrophe. Prefectural Overseer Liu forces himself to remain calm and begins dividing the available fighters into teams. Messengers are sent toward the eastern gate to warn General Ma about old immortal Huang. Officials spread orders throughout the streets, forcing civilians indoors. The strategy is simple but necessary. Reduce movement, isolate outbreaks, and prevent panic from turning the city into an uncontrollable battlefield. Shu Yuanxia and Zhang Shanfeng form one team, combining martial strength with Taoist techniques. Taoist Chong Miao accompanies the armored general. And after insisting repeatedly, Lu Gaoxin is allowed to travel with Chen Ping'an toward the Zhao clan residence, joined by a saber-wielding martial artist named Do. Before leaving, Chen Ping'an notices something very human. Prefectural Overseer Liu is not merely an official sending fighters into danger. He is a father watching his daughter walk toward a battlefield. Lu Gaoxin grows impatient with his repeated warnings, but Chen Ping'an quietly reminds her not to make her father worry more than necessary. It is a brief moment, yet it reveals something important about Chen Ping'an. He has seen immortals, ghosts, sword cultivators, mountain gods, and ancient mysteries, but he still notices ordinary human feelings. Perhaps that is one reason his path feels different. He is always walking toward the extraordinary without completely abandoning the ordinary. The three arrive at the Zhao clan estate and find chaos. Members of the household are pouring through the gates like people possessed by a murderous frenzy. The local archers are terrified. They are trained to catch criminals, not stop neighbors who continue charging after arrows strike their bodies. Chen Ping'an sees enough to understand the danger. If these infected people escape into the city, the outbreak may spread faster than the defenders can contain it. Yet there is another problem. He does not know whether the victims can still be saved. That uncertainty shapes the way he fights. Chen Ping'an refuses to immediately kill them. He uses fists and kicks to force the corrupted citizens backward, trying to contain them without making a permanent decision. This is classic Chen Ping'an. When he knows someone is an enemy, he can act decisively. When he does not know whether someone is still a victim, his fists become restrained. But his companions make different choices. Lu Gaoxin activates her silver bells, sending golden manifestations through the battlefield. The corrupted victims touched by the technique collapse into foul pools of blood. Martial artist Do is even more direct. His saber flashes. One clean movement, one enemy falls. Then another. His technique has none of Shu Yuanxia's battlefield roughness. Do's saber art is refined, restrained, almost mystical. Chen Ping'an quickly realizes that this man has hidden his true cultivation. The quiet swordsman who seemed ordinary inside the prefectural office is almost certainly a martial grandmaster of significant rank. And here we see one of the recurring rules of the martial world. The loudest person in the room is not always the strongest. True experts often conceal their depth because revealing strength too early means revealing options to the enemy. After the immediate wave is suppressed, Lu Gaoxin finally reacts to the horror around her. She becomes sick. That response does not make her weak. Until now, she has treated cultivation almost like an adventure. Bells, techniques, immortals, demons. These things can sound glorious from a distance. But the real martial world is not a heroic painting. It has consequences, and Liu Gaoshan has just seen them. Then Chen Ping'an notices something more dangerous. A trace of crimson light flashes inside the Zhao estate. The source. He immediately enters the compound and follows the strange aura to a quiet courtyard containing a scripture library. There he finds a handsome young man in white. The contrast is almost absurd. Outside, people are dying. Inside, this young master sits comfortably with an ancient book. Behaving like a bored scholar enjoying a peaceful afternoon, he mocks Chen Ping'an and tries to determine his background. Is this young intruder a mountain cultivator? A wandering martial disciple? Perhaps even as word cultivator? Then another red strand appears. Chen Ping'an finally understands what is happening. These blood-red strands are being sent throughout the residence and attached to people. The young man before him is not merely surviving the disaster. He is helping create it. Chen Ping'an taps the sword nurturing gourd. The crimson strand is severed. The young master becomes interested rather than afraid. He assumes Chen Ping'an is one of those low-levels word cultivators who can produce impressive bursts of killing power but quickly exhaust themselves. So he increases the pressure. Dozens of crimson strands rise beside the library, writhing through the air before preparing to scatter across the estate. This is where the enemy makes his fatal mistake. He sees Chen Ping'an rinking from his gourd and assumes the boy is being careless. But Chen Ping'an is not standing there to exchange techniques. He has already made his decision. White sword light crosses the sky. Every crimson strand is destroyed almost instantly. And before the young master can understand the difference between his expectation and reality, the battle is over. 1st and 15th return to the sword nurturing gourd. No prolonged duel. No exchange of secret techniques. No opportunity for the villain to reveal a final trump card. That efficiency is important. Chen Ping'an has matured. Earlier in his journey, danger often forced him into long, desperate struggles. Here, once he recognizes the real threat, he uses the correct weapon immediately. There is a lesson hidden in this scene. Strength is not only having more techniques. It is knowing when not to waste them. Martial artist Du witnesses the result from the courtyard wall. Chen Ping'an had hoped to finish everything without revealing his flying swords to another observer. But once again, secrets are difficult to keep in the Jianghu. Still, the Zhao estate is now under control. And then Chen Ping'an receives a mysterious summons. He leaves the city, crosses beyond the walls, and reaches an abandoned mountain lord temple. There, an elegant scholar is waiting. His form is weak and translucent, like a flame struggling against the wind. This is Shen Wen, the true city god of Blusher Prefecture. And this meeting completely changes how we should understand the earlier conflict. Shen Wen admits that his own past mistakes and accumulated karma helped create the disaster surrounding him. He had been drifting toward demonic corruption without fully understanding what was happening. Had Chen Ping'an not interfered, a protector worshipped by generations of common people might have become the very monster that slaughtered them. Think about the tragedy of that possibility. A city god exists because people trust him. They burn incense, offer prayers, and believe he will defend their homes. For such a deity to fall into corruption is not merely the fall of one cultivator. It is the collapse of a spiritual contract between mortals and the divine. Shen Wen thanks Chen Ping'an for preventing that fate, but he also praises something else: the azure wooden box. Earlier, Chen Ping'an had been willing to return it, even though he could easily have hidden it inside his storage treasure. Instead, he had kept it separately, treating it as someone else's property rather than his own possession. To Shen Wen, that difference reveals Chen Ping'an's character. This is one of the most interesting ideas in Chen Ping'an's journey. Great virtue is often demonstrated through small decisions made when nobody is forcing you to be honest. It is easy to speak about the Tao. It is harder to return a valuable treasure when you could simply keep it. Chen Ping'an apologizes for destroying Shen Wen's golden divine statue during their earlier conflict, but the city god does not blame him. Instead, he teaches him something valuable. The fragments of a divine gold statue are not ordinary metal. Deities recognized by imperial authority and sustained through incense offerings possess divine statues connected to their spiritual rank. Different gods stand at different levels, just as mortal officials occupy different positions. The great mountain gods stand near the peak of this hierarchy, followed by powerful river gods, important city gods, and other officially recognized deities. These divine systems are not simply religious decorations. In this world, territory, imperial authority, incense, karma, and cultivation are interconnected. A god protects a region, the people provide belief in incense, the court provides recognition, and the spiritual order of the land becomes part of the larger political order. Then Shen Wen explains the true significance of the Azure Box. It contains a seal connected to the Heavenly Master residence of Mount Longhu. Not merely a symbol, a genuine immortal treasure, a seal designed to work with a 5 lightning cultivation method. This revelation also explains why the region has survived as long as it has. Even when nobody actively wielded the seal, its very existence acted as a deterrent against evil forces gathering around the city. And now Chen Ping'an is holding it. His reaction is exactly what we would expect. He does not ask how much it is worth. He does not ask whether he can use it. He asks whom he should return it to. The local prefect? The emperor? To Chen Ping'an, possession doesn't automatically mean ownership. Shen Wen studies him carefully. Then the city god laughs. His answer carries the true weight of this chapter. Some treasures are not meant for the person with the highest cultivation. They are meant for the person whose character allows them to carry that power without being corrupted by it. And that may be the deeper reason this chapter places 2 kinds of strength side by side. Old Immortal Huang represents mysterious power hidden behind schemes. The Zhao clan's young master represents supernatural ability used to control helpless victims. Chen Ping'an, however, is repeatedly handed power he never demanded. Flying swords, treasures, techniques, trust. And every time, the real question is not whether he is strong enough to hold them. It is whether his Tao heart will remain the same after he does. Blusher Prefecture is still in danger. The citywide blood formations have not been fully explained. Old Immortal Huang's true scheme is still unfolding, and enemies may already be moving behind the scenes. But now Chen Ping'an possesses another piece of the puzzle, a divine seal connected to heavenly lightning, a city god's trust, and perhaps most dangerously of all, the attention of forces who may realize that this seemingly ordinary young traveler is carrying far more than a sword and a wine gourd. So the question is no longer whether Chen Ping'an can survive the conspiracy. The question is what will happen when the conspiracy finally understands exactly who has stepped into its path.